again, we've gone to such an extreme on one side, and I think people are starting to wake up and like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Once you pick yourself up, you allow God to wash you off, do whatever it is that you guys need to do in y'all's relationship, and you come back.
Doing my best to live God's way kept me as close as I could be to God's will for my life.
It's just that sometimes it does seem like we're on opposing sides.
Yeah, it's weird.
I've been deceived so many times by like listening to certain artists and then find out that they believe in
Ruslan.
All right, I'm here with a new friend of mine, Kieran the Light.
Yes, sir. What's
I
up?
nailed it. I nailed your name.
Yeah, definitely.
All the way, originally from Louisiana.
Yeah, from Louisiana.
Now based in Houston.
Houston, Texas.
And you made it out here to hang out with me.
Yes, I have.
I appreciate you, man. So what I find most intriguing about your journey is that it seemed like you kind of blew up in the Christian hip-hop space without any Christian hip-hop affiliations, any relationships, no major real Rapzilla cosigns, like none of the typical stuff.
Nothing, man.
And I find that very refreshing and dope. Now, what's been your experience in terms of kind of being more viewed like an outsider coming into the space and crushing just strictly off social media?
Man, I'm gonna be honest, like many people haven't like really talked to me as much. I guess they still trying to figure out exactly what it is that I do, you know, because clearly it's for Christ, you know, it's Christian, but at the same time, it's not in the same exact lane as everyone. Like you said, I don't have a lot of the cosigns that a lot of people have, so many people aren't really getting the opportunity to, you know, see who I am, you know, actually like for what it is that I'm actually, the purpose of what I'm doing is. So for me personally, it is about being an evangelist for Christ.
Amen.
And making sure that that's the main thing. But I believe your question was just what the experience is, man. I've been loving the experience, bro. I haven't really gotten a chance to affiliate with any of the biggest like people of the space, but at the same time, I'm still in a place where they're seeing who I am, you know. And I feel like, you know, God just he connects those bridges and he connects those dots whenever it's time.
Yeah. Is there a part of you that feels like maybe there should be more connection with the broader community, like almost like? Yeah, not being slighted, but just kind of not being acknowledged.
Well, I'll be honest, like I have felt slighted, you know, for a while, but it's not something that I took personal. I used to. Like when I first began, I was like, why nobody like reaching out to me? Like certain people that you've mentioned just now, I was like, how come I've never posted on this? Or why isn't this happening? But I still haven't gotten an answer to that. I haven't been searching for it, but I've been kind of like just coming to my own conclusions about like maybe why that's the case. You know, I do realize that I speak about Jesus a lot, and I know that could definitely play a part in the division when it comes down to how other people are affected by that name. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of these Christian pages may have an issue with that. I think it's just the controversy that may come from it, you know, and a lot of the things that I speak about as well, just how deep I go into my music and how real it gets, just when it comes down to my personal opinion of things. And I think a lot of that could be considered harsh or rude or, you know, just not really politically correct sometimes.
So you think it might just be the content may be a bit too jarring for what kind of the status quo is right now in Christian rap?
Yeah, sometimes. Like sometimes it could come off like explicit Christian rap just without the cuss words, I guess, just because I'm saying a lot of things that many people are like, he's not supposed to say that. You know, you shouldn't say that just because like regarding like witchcraft and different things that I speak about, it may come off judgy sometimes and whatnot. And I think a lot of people just don't want to get involved with, you know, whatever is the backlash that may come from that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're relatively new to the space. Like you really popped off on TikTok, you said about 2020, right?
Yeah, in 2020, bro, I didn't even know what CHH was. So I didn't even know there was like a Christian hip hop scene. I thought it was just gospel, and that was just what everybody in the category was. If you were a rapper, if you were a singer, whatever you did, that's the category it was. And I found out there was a completely whole space of just artists that did strictly Christian hip hop.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was like a subgenre of hip hop for Christians. So yeah, like once I got into the space, I thought I was like the only person doing what it is that I'm doing. And then I started seeing like so many different people pop up, but it's new people that were popping up, you know, it's like different individuals that I was seeing come just out of the space as well, you know, like Caleb Gordon, you know, a lot of these guys, Chris Sincere. I see a lot of these like upcoming people that also like blew up on like TikTok and a lot of different areas that God, I feel like, is using as new platforms and like kind of like almost a new age type of, not Christianity, but rap. So yeah, I don't think it's the same exact category just because the way that we're delivering it.
I see what you're saying. So did you grow up listening to gospel music?
No, I didn't.
Nothing.
At all. See, I grew up going to church. I went to a Catholic church, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, at the time, like, as young as I was, I still didn't understand anything that I was learning. I just knew I had to go to church. It was like a discipline in my house. Like, we had to go to church because my parents went to church.
Okay.
And then eventually it got to a point where, eventually I had peers around me and the environment around me that influenced me. And I got into hip hop. I was listening to, like, Wayne and Boosie and, like, you know, all of these guys that aren't Christian when it comes down to rap. And yeah, man, that was my influences just to cultivate, you know, who I am as an artist today. And then it got to a point where I just got sick of myself, you know, just my own sins, the different things I was falling into, everything I would touch, you know, I would destroy just because of the immoral things that I was tapping into in my life. And when the Lord continued to reveal himself to me and show me that I had a way, you know, I had an opportunity to come to him and still be accepted. I took that route and it swiftly just began to blow up. Like, it wasn't even a wait, right? Like, I started posting on TikTok, creating the music, and it just started going viral, man. And from there, it's been up. So, yeah.
I got a ton of questions about your Catholic background.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued in that, and just your whole origin story. But I want to come back to that. So tell me, what was your first initial impression? You start doing Christian hip hop on TikTok. You're like, oh, like, it's just me out here.
Right.
And then you slowly start discovering this entire community that isn't really embracing you. They're kind of looking at you side-eyed a little bit, like, oh man, this dude's very explicit with the gospel, right? So what is your impression of Christian hip hop?
I feel like it's very watered down compared to what it is that I speak about in my music. I don't hear many artists speak about Christ very in depth as I do. Or their relationship with him. That doesn't mean that I dislike them or anything, or I'm against them. That doesn't mean I wouldn't even work with them. It's just something that I noticed, you know, whenever I would listen to a lot of the music that I would hear. And it's not like a specific person. It's most of the people that are in the space. I realized that. And I was just like, man, so I wonder, like, why isn't the conviction hitting me the way that I see all these other people being touched by the music that I'm putting out. And of course, everybody has their own, you know, taste of what they like. Everybody has their own cup of tea. So I'm not saying that they're not good. It's just that I realized the stretch in the gap of, you know, how different my music was from theirs. So yeah, I just believe that we're lacking in the area of preaching about Christ more than just, I'm not gonna say ourselves, but making it about rap. It seems like it's still about hip hop instead of actually trying to preach the gospel. And if that's not, you know, what you're called to do, like, you know, there's people that are called to do this strictly for making music, you know, just for Christians to listen to and just for people to kind of like go to the gym, jam out, and that's fine. But I had to learn that. At first, I felt like everybody was wrong for not doing it the way I was doing it. You know, because I was new to the space and everything, so I didn't understand everything. I was still new just on my walk and just learning how to be a Christian. So, I of course, like, I came in kind of like a little bit judgy because I felt like I was being judged in a way, and it just seemed like that's what we do here. Like, it's saying, oh, well, you're doing it this way, and you shouldn't do that, and everybody has their opinion of how you should do it. And I ended up learning that it's so much more than that. And the body is, you know, consisting of so many different areas, and we're all called to do different things in different ways. So I don't ever look down upon a person because they may not create the music the way that I create it. But I definitely think that there's a difference for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the way you've came into the space as a disruptor because of TikTok. So my buddy Nick D has a good amount of success on TikTok and all that kind of stuff in the music. He came in through the Rapzilla arm initially, through the Christian rap arm, and then kind of pivoted to just more like kind of clean pop music. And one of the things he said recently, which is I think very difficult to do, but I feel like you do it a little bit, and I'm not sure if you're doing it intentionally. I feel like he talked about making music with the content in mind. So like making the music and then having the video, the short form, the marketing side in mind. And I feel like the difference between you, Caleb, Chris Sincere, like you guys are making stuff with the visual in mind, whereas like the rest of Christian hip hop is still kind of like same old establishment music, circle gatekeeping a little bit, you know? But you're coming in making stuff different. Would you say that's a part of your process? Are you thinking about how is this going to ultimately execute?
Yeah, and not only that, but you know, the Lord kept me in a position where I had to depend on the resources that I had. So I always knew that the only way I was going to get this out is if I did it on my phone and posted it on TikTok or on Instagram. I didn't know anybody that was able to just come out and just shoot this high quality cinematic video for it. I didn't have it, you know. I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the money. I didn't know how to do that. So I only knew how to do that. And during the time of COVID, you know, when that first made its way into the world, it was just an opening, you know, for everybody, just because everybody was on lockdown. Everyone was paying attention to their phones. And it was a time that TikTok was going crazy. Everyone was making the dances and everything. And from that, I just kind of learned like the algorithm of it. And I also learned what it was that people were attracted to. And I realized that the visual plays such a huge part, because it got to a point where people didn't really even care about official music videos anymore.
Yep, you're 100% right.
You know, like I realized like, okay, I'm not saying that I don't need those, because I mean, everybody wants to see it. It's a different feel. It's a whole different dynamic to the music. But whenever you're able to just have it right there in front of you and it's hitting you the same exact way it would hit you if you were listening to it surround sound in your car or something like that, you're like, who is this? Especially when I'm looking at you in your face and I'm talking to you, like, because most of my videos is like me walking and just rapping, I'm just spitting bars. And it almost seems like it's in conversation form, you know, and I realized that, hey, this is something I don't see anybody else doing. And I'm not saying like I'm the one that started it or anything. I just know, like I said, at the time that I began, I didn't see anyone else doing what it was that I was doing. Everybody just seemed like they had a lot more money and resources. So
100%. I think it definitely feels native to the platform of short form, and the timing of people moving away from music videos and people going into short form. And it sounds like you caught, because I discovered you around the same year, like 2020, and I was like, oh, this is dope. This creates a whole new way of people to build a career in music outside of the ministry component, just from a content strategy standpoint,
and gain exposure.
Exposure. That's what.
Exactly.
That's ultimately
that was the main thing. Because you know, there was a point of time when we didn't, like, social media wasn't popping as it is right now. So we still were dependent on music videos on TV and radio and all those different things to tell us what to like. And now you have the opportunity to come across whoever, you know, is doing something. And, you know, I just decided to use that, you know, for something that could actually benefit others. And when I did it, it just started going crazy. And I learned that the more that I, you know, lifted his name in the music, the more popping it was.
Now, have you moved that over to like YouTube Shorts as well? Because I see you on Instagram, but what about YouTube Shorts?
No, so I'm on YouTube and I like download a lot of my music on YouTube, but I don't have the actual videos that I'm doing on like Instagram, TikTok. I don't have that on YouTube Shorts. I should do that. I know.
Absolutely. Because I think YouTube Shorts, they're about to start paying in January. So that's going to go crazy.
Is there like a limit on YouTube Shorts for like how long those are supposed to be?
60 seconds.
Okay, well, cool. Yeah, I definitely could do that then.
Now, again, when you're writing the record, are you like, oh, this 8 bars is going to go into the short? You're thinking like that?
I already know like exactly what parts of a song I'm about to shoot a video to or a clip to, because I already know the ones that are going to hit hard. I got to make sure that it has enough context for them to understand what I'm talking about. So that's the reason why I utilize the full 60 seconds like I did and try to fit as much as I could in it, just to make them want to like say, what song, where is this, you know, and I have it available for them. But yeah, I'll say something like I know is about to be crazy, and it's not for that, you know, it's not for like the clout of it, but at the same time I know it's because of the way it hit me whenever I first like came up with it, when God gave it to me. I know it's gonna go crazy. So
now, are you able to transition some of that over to Spotify? Like, are you able to take folks from TikTok and Instagram over to your Spotify or your iTunes or Apple Music?
So the way that I was able to do that was because everything that I rap is not like freestyle, like walking. It's literally my music. I'm just lip syncing the music that I create. So whenever they hear it, it's like, where is this? And then it's leading them to it. There's a lot of other people I'm seeing doing maybe like, you know, their own like original stuff just right off the fly, or like remixes and things like that. So it doesn't lead them to their original content. Everything you see from me on the platforms leads straight to my original content, the music on Spotify, Apple, everywhere else. So,
and would you say that's the main way you're monetizing right now? Is Spotify, Apple Music?
Yeah. Like once my stuff just started going viral and went crazy, because I began to release music like back to back. You know, I got very
like what, every week, every other week?
Nah, man, just like every 2 months I started like putting out an album. I have
full on album.
Yeah, I have 102 songs out right now since 2020.
That's dope.
Yeah, and bruh, it's like at a point where the music is just constantly being streamed, and it got to a point where I began to be able to live off of it. I started paying my bills off of the money that I was making off of streams. Outside of everything else I was able to monetize from that, just strictly from streams. And that's cool for somebody else to hear, just to know that that's possible. You know, just with the consistency that you put in, most definitely. And what led to that was the videos that I was creating on these platforms like TikTok and Instagram.
That's awesome. Now, since things have kind of popped off for you, have more people started reaching out? Has anybody from the CHH space reached out?
It's funny because like I don't know who's considered the CHH space.
Okay, respect.
But I've definitely had many people like reach out to me and want to work for sure. Like I said, when it comes down to just the distinguishing of like who's actually in CHH or not, I kind of like just got thrown in there because many people, if it's Christian, it's CHH, So if it's Christian rap, they think it's CHH. I'm not saying that I'm not in that. I don't even really know what it is in full. But yeah, I have a lot of artists that reach out and they're like, yo, we got to do something or we got to do a record together. And the thing is, like, I just like to make sure that there's purpose behind it. A lot of people that I work with, I have relationships with them. It don't have to be like me and them talking every day. We're not best friends, but at least I still know that they're standing on the same principles that I stand on when it comes down to why we're creating the music and putting it out.
That's dope, man. In terms of where you see the fault lines in CHH, do you have any where you're like, or is it just mainly like, man, we need to preach about Jesus more? Why ain't you talking about Jesus? Like, is that kind of your main critique, would you say?
That's my main critique. Like I said, when I hear people, because I am like, usually when I listen to someone, I'm searching for that just because I've been deceived so many times by like listening to certain artists and then find out that they believe in a completely different God than what I'm talking about or something. So not saying that's in this space, just in general.
Sure.
So I like to make sure that the people that I'm listening to or that I'm working with are actually worshiping Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And yeah, like I feel like that is definitely an issue. I just don't like to come off as if I'm out here just looking for like the smoke with people or something.
Sure.
It's not like that at all.
Because the music do got like a battle rap component to it. Like you like this punchline heavy. Like you ain't rapping for Jesus. I am worshiping the great I am.
Man, I'm really trying to just motivate people, man. Because many of the people that don't speak about Jesus, it's usually because they feel like they can't because of the reach that it won't get.
Sure.
So a lot of them still have that purity in their heart where it's like everybody, they worship Jesus Christ. They love Jesus.
Yes.
We just don't know that enough. And I like to show people that, we could still have that same competitive spirit.
Yep.
If you feel like you're the best in whatever, that's against yourself, whatever, just, be confident within yourself.
Amen.
Speak that on the track. That's what I do. And I also like to challenge others to be able to come out and go just as hard as I'm going. Like I said, like I don't know any of these guys that it may seem like I'm coming at because I'm not coming at a specific person.
Sure.
I'm just really just trying to encourage people to get up and do something positive and don't feel like they have to rap about something immoral in order for it to go crazy.
Amen. Well, I'll take you just I don't know how much. Do you know a little bit of Christian hip hop, like history and how we got here, or are you just completely like, man, I don't know nothing?
I know
You good.
Okay, I know a little bit, man. But I mean, you could definitely educate me a little bit more.
So I'm gonna give you the most condensed version I can give you. Okay, so there's kind of been two arms of Christian hip hop, right? Yeah. There's been it's almost gonna sound like East Coast, West Coast, but it's not. But it is, but it's not. So like on the East Coast, you had the cross movements and the lamp modes. And those are the brothers. Are you familiar with any of those names?
Not at all.
Okay, so Cross Movement Records was a huge label, late 90s to the mid 2000s. And they were explicitly theological with their raps.
Right.
More than you. I'm talking like quoting Calvinistic theology, John Calvin, Jonathan Edwards, like Charles Spurgeon. Very punchline heavy, but very heady.
Yeah.
And they kind of dominated the scene initially. And on the West Coast, we had a collective called the Tunnel Rats. Now, the Tunnel Rats is more of like the lifestyle rap. They come out of the battle rap scene. They weren't trying to be Christian rappers. It was just kind of what they fell into.
Right.
And so from the Tunnel Rats arm, you had guys like LA Symphony, Pigeon John, Propaganda, Future Shock. I kind of come out of that side of things, just proximity-wise on the West Coast. That's where I got mentored. When I got saved, when I really surrendered my life to Jesus, I read from Tunnel Rats / Future Shock and Brady from the Cross Movement the same week. Like, it was crazy the way that happened. Right. So long story short, the Tunnel Rats never really blossomed. They were just kind of more underground. And the Cross Movement guys got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they ended up signing Lecrae. And so Lecrae really exploded with Real Talk, and then Rebel came out in 2007. And so this is many would call like the golden era of Christian hip hop. So Cross Movement's booming, The Truth is booming, Lecrae is booming, Reach Records is starting to become a thing, Triple E, and all of it at that point is explicitly bar heavy, preachy Jesus. Every song, Lord kill me if I don't preach the gospel.
Right.
Still in my 20s, but I'll die if I have to. This is Lecrae in 2007 on Rebel. What happened was, some of the brothers went so hard to the theological extreme, and bridges started being built, guys like Propaganda, guys like myself, and then as some of the brothers from Cross Movement stopped doing music, some of them had kind of some, some moral failures. We don't got to talk about those. I could tell you offline what they were. There's some things that happened lifestyle-wise. So what happened was it went straight explicit Jesus to mainly Lecrae being the main figurehead, kind of slowly pivoting, and then it shifted to the opposite extreme,
right,
where we don't really ever talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
It was just lifestyle music,
yeah,
and so it strung from one extreme. Back in the day, bro, like if they didn't know that you were a Calvinist, like they were like looking at you sus. Like, I'm being straight up. Like, are you listening to Paul Washer and John Piper? And if you weren't taken seriously.
Yeah,
and that's
man.
like when I came around. And then, so it went from that extreme, brothers kind of fell. It was very like presuppositional. Guys are going to like seminaries. And then, bro, it just yo-yoed the complete opposite extreme.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're seeing, the remnants of that. And that hasn't been good either. There's been dudes living worldly, not following Jesus to the, with all their intensity. And the music has kind of allowed this, I don't like to use carnality, but like it's definitely hasn't been the most optimal with this stuff we tolerate. And so now we're on the opposite extreme. And I feel like with guys like you, Caleb, Gordon, we're slowly starting to shift to just, I think, a good balance of, man, we need the lifestyle stuff. We need the gym music. We need that. But we also need to be explicit about what we about and who we believe.
Yeah, because somebody has to do it, man. Yeah. And what you just said makes so much sense, because even when you were explaining like the people that were going hardcore for it, I still don't believe that works without the sauce that God is now allowing us to put on it. Just because of the times and the eras, everything just changing. And also just because of the fact that there's a lot of people that don't receive that way. So for me personally, I think we had to come into the space. I'm not going to say me personally, I had to come into the space not really knowing the history of that stuff, because the history of that probably would have still affected the way that I deliver my message.
Sure.
I literally was in secular music. Like that's all I was looking at, just studying the styles, the flows, the cadences, deliveries, it's the sonically how everything sounded. And I was trying to find a way to transition that into what it is that I'm doing now, but to glorify Christ.
Amen.
And when I came in, it seemed like there was like so many different rules of what you can and can't do, I guess, to be accepted by that particular community. See, I came in first thinking that we were all the same. Like, we love God and I'm saved, and that's what it is, Christian rap. So everybody was like, oh yeah, you know Lecrae, Lecrae, you should sound Lecrae, this and that. And because he was like really the only Christian artist I really knew like that, just because in school, when I was in high school, like people listened to Lecrae. Anybody that was like more so on the Christian side, that's why they were listening to that. So that's what I knew about, but I didn't truly know his music. And now it's at a point where I'm not sure like what it was that Lecrae was doing then compared to now, but I started hearing like a lot of the things what you were saying, like the criticism. I don't really know him or anything about him like that, but I know what it is that the Lord's calling me to do.
Amen.
And the way that he's calling me to do it has to go without influence from anybody that was before me. Otherwise, it's going to change the way that I'm saying everything.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, yeah, you're right. Sometimes knowing too much can taint things. And what you just described is what I experienced, like coming in the scene 07, 08, when we were starting to bubble as a group called The Breaks. It was the same kind of like, so you're talking about like folks being like, wait a minute, like, were you a little too preachy? To us, it was like, y'all ain't preachy enough. Tell me the 5 points of Calvinism now. You know what I mean? Like, it was like that energy. So it's interesting how much things have flipped and inverted.
The things that I began to learn and talk about, I thought those were the things I was supposed to talk about and say. And then I started realizing that people that were actual Christians or claiming to be that were the ones becoming offended. They were like, oh, no, that's not, or correcting me and all this stuff. I'm like, dang, like I thought, at least I'm trying to do at least something that's completely different from what's leading us to the darkness.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? So
Amen.
I felt like we were all together, but then I began to realize that, it's a lot of cliques. It's a lot of different, like, teams and stuff. And that's cool to have your people and your fam and everything. Like, we all have that. It's just that sometimes it does seem like we're on opposing sides.
It's weird. It's weird. You're right. It is weird. And that's my hope even with today. Like I told you, John Keith is going to come up, hang out. Caleb's here. My heart is like to bridge some of these gaps because I think brothers can, one, just have relationship is always good. And then two, I point to you, Caleb, Nick D, even though Nick D's not like a Christian rapper, as the model. Like I think like you're frustrated, a lot of Christian rappers is frustrated by the Christian rap community, which is the CHH space is smaller than the Christian TikTok space of where you've been able to be disruptive. So they get frustrated. I'm like, well, stop worrying about these same 100,000 Rapzilla fans and go build something on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'll point to you, I'll point to Caleb. Kind of to pivot gears a little bit before I want to hear more of your story. What do you make of Ye and what he's kind of attempted to do within kind of Christian and not Christian and like some of the outbursts that we've seen online? Like, what do you make of all that?
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
And whenever I feel confused, I try to like keep away when I feel confused.
Yeah.
Just because like, sometimes I don't know him at all, so I'm not trying to say anything, bad about him. Just sometimes he'll say something, I'm like, yeah, like that's right. And then he'll say something else and I'm like,
that ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, I don't know this guy anymore. But it'll feel like that. So like when it comes down to what he's doing, I mean, I think anything that carries the name Jesus, like I saw he put out Jesus is King at the time. I remember when he did that, I was like, yo, he literally put out an album that says Jesus on it. And all of these platforms, labels who are promoting it have to say Jesus is King in order to promote it. So I was like, okay, like this is, regardless of what anyone may think of him, this is something that the Lord is allowing and he's using. And I think a lot of people get that confused. I believe that Kanye is still being used. We could have our personal opinions of what his agenda is, his personal reasons for what he's doing, but I don't really look at that. I don't really know him or care about the person. I don't even believe the flesh matters. It's really the spirit. And I believe that God is using everything that's going on, even the things that we may seem foolish, even the things that we may not like. So for me, the fact that he's talking about God matters, and I think that that's still going to open the door for many people who are listening to him, whether they think he's deceiving or not, to still turn to more things that sound like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a win.
and what you mean by allow me to interject. You're not saying that God is inspiring everything he's saying. You're saying God is using these things, even the things that are like way out of.
Clarify that. Like I'm not saying that God told him to say the things he's saying. Like I think at one point I believe Kanye said something about like he was being a spokesperson kind of like for God, or God was using him. I don't believe like anything like that. I'm just saying that the things that he's that he's allowing Ye to do and say and expose, quote unquote, God is still using that for our good, because all of those things are going to work together regardless.
Amen.
And I think that as long as God's name is in the mix, it's still going to plant a seed for somebody.
Yeah.
Even if he's not doing it the way that he should. Now, I'm not saying like we should take like, his leadership as something that we should just follow onto this righteous path of everything. But I believe that just from a music perspective, I believe that it's good that he's incorporating that into it.
Yeah, it reminds me of the passage in Philippians. And just to be clear, I'm with you. I think Ye said some outlandish, off-the-wall stuff, specifically some of the anti-Semitic stuff. But I think of the passage in Philippians where Paul says, some preach with false motives, some preach with ill intent, but like I'm happy that at least the gospel was being preached.
Right.
And so I'm kind of hearing you say that. I think of that verse. I think of the verse where the apostles come and they say, hey, these other guys are casting out demons in your name, Jesus. And Jesus is like, look, whoever is not against us is for us.
Because I feel like many people that are in Christianity are, born again and believers, they're going to look at what he's doing. And of course, they're going to say that's wrong. Because, we are filled with the Spirit and we have discernment and we know, what to believe and what not to. But for somebody who's just out in the world who don't know anything, which was me at a particular time, if I see, because when he came out with the Jesus King album, I wasn't.
Were you following? Okay, you weren't following Jesus.
Right. I was trying. I thought I was.
Yeah.
I was believing in God and thinking I was going to go to heaven tomorrow just because I thought I was a good person. But I wasn't actually carrying like the principles that were standing on the foundation of, the Bible. So at least all of them, I was like kind of lukewarm in and out of what I thought, my own rules of that were. So when it comes down to him, like when he put that out, that definitely made me more conscious of, I'm not going to say who Jesus was, but it made me want to find out. Because he was an influence. Yeah. So seeing him do that, it made me care more about God, which is sad to say, but at the same time, that's just how lost I was. And I know that's how lost many people are. Yeah. And just because somebody may not be doing it what we may call the right way, doesn't mean that it's more than what the lost person is doing.
Amen.
Them witnessing that could truly be something that could also plant a seed for them to do something.
Yeah, and you said it's a testament to how lost you were. I would say it's a testament of how powerful influence is now. If someone is highly influential and they're saying the name of Jesus, even if it's based in all kinds of other stuff that's just contrary to that, it still could have an impact to draw somebody to some degree of curiosity, which it seems like
because somebody could say something negative about Jesus, but you don't know what God may have revealed to them before they saw that, which could be confirmation to something positive about Jesus. Like anything that we see could be some way that God is speaking to us. So that's the reason why I'm saying the fact that he's just kept the name alive, regardless of what he's doing. Now, at some point, we have to eventually get out of the place of, I guess, ignorance and start looking at facts of what the Bible says and what the Word of God is. But I'm just talking about for people just to be drawn in, you know, just to find out some sort of news at all about the good news.
Yeah, what is your impression of like Maverick City music and everything they got going?
I haven't listened to anything.
You haven't listened to any Maverick?
No, I know who they are.
Okay.
But I haven't been involved in that. I'll be honest with you, it's not anything like specific that I'm trying to do by like not listening to certain artists. God has just kept me away from a lot of stuff.
Intentionally, you think?
I feel like that because if it wasn't intentional, I think I would have been able to know what you're talking about right now. I don't even like when people start bringing up a lot of these people's names. Sometimes I have no idea what they're talking about, and I feel like if I would have got too caught up in certain things like that, it would have pulled me away from the way he's using me to do what I'm doing. Now, at some point, I'm sure I'll be able to dibble and dabble into certain things and be like, "Yo, this is fire." But I've been so locked in and focused on what it is that he wants me to do. That's the reason there's so much music out. That's the reason why there's so much content. When I was seeing the amount of people that were being affected by what it is that I was putting out, I was only locked in on what God's telling me, just listening to his voice. So when I hear anything else, especially once controversy start coming around it, that's bringing confusion to me. So I have to start trying to figure out if I believe this or that. And that's just too much for me. Like I really try to like stay out of everybody's business and what they got going on and just preach what it is he's telling me to say.
And so you see some controversy, you pull back.
Yeah, like if it looks like something that's like a lot of mess, I just feel like it's a distraction.
Interesting. That's dope, man. It sounds like a principle I try to live by is create before you consume.
Yeah.
You know, contribute before you're just a consumer of whatever is happening in the music or in the space. And it sounds like that's a principle you're operating under, and that's why it's allowing you to have the output you're able to have. You said 100 songs in 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
man. And it's not even about, because I mean, of course, man, I believe in quality over quantity. So it's not like I'm just trying to throw songs out so I can have a bunch of them. It's just the work ethic that he's instilling into me as I'm doing this, bro. You know, so that's the thing. Like, it's nothing personal against any artist. Like, the fact that I even know people that you've mentioned, like Caleb, Chris, you know, I know Henrik. I know a lot of these guys, you know, that have come up in the space because I've come across them on the same platforms that I'm on. So I look at them and I'm like, yo, like these people are fire, you know, like they're hard. There's a lot of people don't know, like Eddie Clark, you know, Kid Lee. There's a lot of guys like that we don't even really know in the space that are coming up. And I see them, I collab with those people. But like I said, it just depends on if he puts that in my vision or not. If I don't see it, then.
What do you think his space is missing?
I think it's missing unity. More than anything. Because like what we just spoke about, I believe that there's so much division that it still seems like what the secular side is doing. It almost seems like we're still trying to reach for some sort of attention, some level of clout, and for who's the best in whatever they're doing. And whoever is the person that's hot right now, that's the person that we need to be around or whatever. It just still seems like that. And like I said, when I realized that, I kind of like stepped away from it just because I'm trying to do something different. See, I want to be able to collaborate with all of these guys, even if they're not saying Jesus as loudly as possible. I still know that they love Jesus by their actions and by what it is that they're doing around me. So what I'm saying is like, I don't have a problem with the way the Lord is using you to do it. I just think we should come together more because we'll be able to make much louder noise if we come together. That's good. Whenever people are out there trying to like figure out if they even want to be a Christian and they see us arguing about it, it's like, hey, it looks confusing to them. So I would stay away from it too. I wouldn't know if I want to believe in God either. They look like they're still trying to figure it out.
That's so good. That's so good. So take me back to your upbringing. You said you grew up Catholic.
Yeah. So,
and then you kind of gave your life to Jesus around 2019, 2020, if I'm following correctly. So just kind of give me some of that backstory, that origin story.
So growing up, like all I knew was Catholic church because that's what my mom and her mom and siblings and everybody, you know, went to where'd that come from? I'm really not sure. I just know as growing up, when I went to church, that's where we went, to a Catholic church. I had my first communion when I was like 7 and confirmation when I was older. And that was just because that's what I was conditioned to, like at the time. You know, I had to do what my parents told me to do. And nothing against, you know, them. They, like my mom, she wanted to make sure that she had her best interest in everything. And I'm sure at the time that she believed that she was doing the right thing for us, just keeping us in church, period.
Yeah.
So like I said, I was too young to ever really understand anything that was going on. Hearing about Mary and all of the saints and all this stuff, I didn't know what was going on.
Did you hear the gospel?
No. Like if it was around me, I wasn't receiving it at that time.
But you never heard like Jesus came, lived your life, died for your sins.
I knew that.
Place your faith in him type thing.
I knew that, but it always just seemed like a traditional story that you would hear. Like it just seemed like something that you needed to know. You know, I still talk to people today and they believe, they'll say that they believe that, oh, Jesus died on the cross, he came back for our sins and everything, but no one's living like they believe it. So when I say no one, I'm referring to the individuals that I may have spoken with, you know, that may say that. So when it comes down, like that's how I was. You know, I knew all of the stuff that you're saying. I just didn't know that the principles that I needed to live by is what activated all of those things to even look like I believed in it. So that was the thing, man. And yeah, I grew up Catholic, and once I graduated and, you know, I became an adult and everything, I stopped really going to Catholic church because it wasn't for me. It just was very quiet, you know, and I didn't understand anything that was going on. And it got to a point where I just started to learn things through my own experiences, you know, the wisdom that he allowed me to receive just from the things that I did wrong in my life and learn to not do. And once he began to reveal himself to me, which wasn't like just this out of nowhere type thing, it was just him slowly showing me little things that was like, that's definitely God.
More of a process.
Yeah. And I would learn that. And as I did it, you know, I began to switch and transition my music into uplifting him and not just saying, y'all need to go follow Jesus, because I didn't even know what that meant. I just was talking about the things that was going on in my life, and the more that I would give this to God, the more I would see fruit, the more things I would see begin to transpire in a positive and upward direction. And when I did that, he continued to just bring that like up to the top. Like it just kept happening, bro. So now I have so many people that are witnessing it, and when I was doing secular music, it wasn't doing nothing. You know, I was putting so much money, so much work, time, effort, everything into that, and it was not moving. Still trying to be something that I wasn't, you know, talking about money I didn't have, girls, all this different stuff. You know, whatever we thought was going to fit the mold to get me a deal or something, but it just wasn't working. And the moment that I did this, he accepted me. And once he accepted me, everybody in the community began to accept me, even outside of the community of what we may call Christianity as well.
Wow, man, that's such an interesting thing, because from one standpoint, you were trying to do things, like you said, it wasn't really who you were, and it's oversaturated. I mean, music is just oversaturated in general, and then you kind of switch it up, and it just starts to click for you. You know? And so do you remember the moment you were like, all right, like, I'm following Jesus, like, or when you were saved? Like, do you remember that moment?
The moment that I was saved, I can't give you that, just because there were so many times when I would question myself and be like, am I saved? Just because I was still like messing up. And I would feel like if I had the Spirit within me, I wouldn't do certain things that I was doing. So I didn't understand that, like, you know, just because, you know, you're delivered from things don't mean you still can't be tempted or fall into the things that you fall into. So I had to learn that. But the moment that I'll say the moment I knew was when the moment I knew what my calling was.
Okay.
And I knew that once I saw the way people were affected by my music. And I'm like, yo, it's not like I'm saying anything that's immoral in this music. I'm talking about Jesus. And when I would get, you know, different messages and the different people come to me and say, yo, your music is changing my life. While it was changing mine, I was like, yo, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. Because he would keep me in these desperate places, whether it was financially, whether it's spiritually, no matter what, where I had to keep doing this in order to even see what it was that he was going to continue to do in my life. I never was in a position where I could get too comfortable. Because I believe that like 2 years ago, if I'd have got a deal and got like $1 million, I probably just stopped. You know, just because that was my motive at the time. I was just trying to get famous, get popping, and, you know, make some money and do whatever it is that these rappers do. And now I realize that it's not about that. I have a call on my life, and, you know, once I get all of that money, I get all these things that I'm trying to get, life is still going to go on, and I'm still going to end up wherever I'm going to end up.
When did the motive change?
Believe it or not, the motive changed after I was doing the music. I would say maybe about early last year, there was a shift that took place. At the beginning,
2021.
Beginning of 2021. And like I said, I started this in 2020. And as I was creating the music, like I wasn't coming in claiming to be like a leader or anything. Sure. I just was making music. Yeah. So I wasn't trying to like lead people to a certain direction. I was just talking about what God was doing in my life. And then I began to realize where that was leading people. That was when I was like, okay, I think that there's more to this than just getting in here, making it a self-centered thing. Because I was always talking about, I'm going to be the best rapper and I'm going to make this much money and I'm going to do this. Now, you may still see me speak with like some of that same zeal in my music now about like myself, but now it comes from a place of confidence, you know, and just trying to influence that in the community. But yeah, I didn't truly figure that out until like midways through what I'm doing right now. I literally was learning as I was going because I'd make some stuff and then I'd turn around and like do a whole bunch of stuff that didn't seem like I was Christian. Like a Christian shouldn't do this is what we would say is politically correct from somebody. They'd be like, oh, nah, if he's a Christian, he wouldn't do that. And I was still like making a lot of moves. I was still smoking weed. You know what I'm saying? I was cheating.
While you were doing the Christian rap?
Yes.
You were smoking weed and cheating on your girl?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, like
okay, hold on. You gotta. Why?
Well, you got. Nah, man. I'm gonna be honest, and I hope you keep this in here. Like
I'll keep it on.
The reason why I'm saying this is because at the time, like I said, at the time that I was doing this, I wasn't doing it to lead people a certain place. I was really just making music.
You was just experimenting. Like, this is kind of what I'm learning. God's showing me these things. I'm gonna put it in the raps.
Yeah, like I was just making music. Like I wasn't trying to like be a preacher or a pastor or evangelist or I didn't even know what that stuff was. Yeah. Like I just knew God was beginning to work in my life because I felt that and I was trying to make some changes, but music was something that I loved to do and I just started putting that down on the track. And at the time, certain point in time, I was still trying to figure out if smoking weed was even a bad thing still. You know, we try to make excuses for certain things. I was still doing that. I was, what's a plan? And it came from like, I didn't know everything yet. I just literally began to know who the Lord was maybe like 6 to 7 months like before that, and it was a journey and I learned, and then as that changed, you know what I mean, I began to say, okay, like I shouldn't be doing this. And he was convicting me for the things that I was doing. And then you know, that was when I went ahead and I got married. I began to make a lot of these changes in my life.
And how long you been married now?
About 2 years.
2 years. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So
but I don't want it to just so that people know that, like I'm not saying like nah, we should just, you know, do the things that I was doing or anything. I'm not trying to condone that or anything. I'm saying like that's the true walk of a Christian when you're trying to let go of things you were conditioned to for so long and then go cold turkey all of a sudden after this many years, but no one's speaking about that in the music. What I'm telling you right now, I just said something about that in my last album about why did I start getting high again, you know, to try and fill a void, you know, that I'm trying to fill or get rid of certain emotions that I'm feeling that I feel like, oh, maybe God isn't listening to me anymore. You know, it's so many different areas that we fall into that we don't want to tell others just because we want to keep that image of perfection up. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's not about trying to be funny when I was saying it. It was really serious because I was trying to do what was right, but still was falling into what was wrong.
That's interesting, man. I mean, I've definitely been there earlier on. I think for me, I was so young, you know, like I came to the faith. I started going to church about 15 years old, still doing music, still making secular music. And it was about a 2-year process before I was like, all right, like, I'm going to do everything to the best of my ability, the way God would have me do things, right? So I always hear it said like salvation is free because it's by grace through faith. It costs you nothing because it's just a gift. So we can't boast about it, right? We can't be like, I saved myself. No. That's by grace through faith, a gift from God. But discipleship will cost you everything, you know? And so like the more I switch to go, okay, man, God's good, and he's good. He'll love me through this stuff. Like he'll love me through these shenanigans and this sin. But because he's so good, I'm gonna do my best to live my life the way he would have me live my life. And that kind of unlocked some things. That started like things just kind of started falling in line. And maybe 2 years after that is when I met my wife, you know, and we started dating. And so like everything, doing my best to live God's way kept me as close as I could be to God's will for my life.
Because you have to get composed to it and understand it. You know, like when I was starting, I wasn't deeply into the word. I wasn't deeply in the Bible like that because it was still very boring to me. I didn't understand it. I didn't like really know what it was talking about in certain parts. I didn't get it. So I just knew God, Jesus, and whatever I was being told. I was living off of like messages I was being told. And then if I'd see like a scripture I like in the Bible, with no context about what it said before or after that, I would just live off that. You should do right unto others. And, you know, and then I would just, okay. You know, like I wouldn't actually read these passages and figure out why God was saying the things that he was saying. I didn't understand it was a living word and it was an actual relationship you had to have with God. So yeah, like when I was creating the music, like if you were to listen to like my first album, it's not very like biblically sound. It was more so just me speaking just from experiences in my life.
The cool thing is, and I was telling you a little bit about like my buddy Young Don and kind of hearing some of your journey. The cool thing is, it's both good and bad, right? Because from one standpoint, it's like you're living this out publicly. You're living out probably some messy theology, messy lifestyle, right? Like you're living it out publicly. But the flip side of that is it's public. It's documented.
Right.
You can go back and be like, man, listen to the first album. I wasn't in the best place. I was still smoking weed. I was still cheating on my girlfriend. I was trying to figure it out.
There was a point in time when I wanted to like go back and take that stuff down. Like I was like, oh, I shouldn't keep this up because now I know this. And no, people witness the journey. But here's the thing: is like if you are somebody that is considered a leader in the community or whatever you do, and you do have a slip up, because we make mistakes. You know, you do something behind the scenes. It could be adultery or something like that. Once you pick yourself up, you allow God to wash you off, do whatever it is that you guys need to do in y'all's relationship, and you come back, you know, even harder than you were before. Are you going to mention that in your discography of music, or are you gonna like keep it tucked in? See, that's the thing. It's like if someone hear that I did that, it's like, oh, I'm not listening to him anymore. He was smoking weed while he was making that music or whatever. And it's like, yo, like you wouldn't even know that if you
didn't say it.
If I didn't
own
it.
Yeah,
you know, I'm telling you this because there's people out there that are dealing with this. They're trying to walk this righteous path, but they're still falling into the wrong things. And many of them are people that we're listening to. A lot of the people that we're listening to, and they'll find a way to condense that into their music and sugarcoat it in a way that you could see that, oh, they were falling into some sin, but you don't quite know exactly what it was. I go like very in depth.
Specific. Like, I was doing X, Y, and Z on this block.
Like it's really raw because that's when people know that it's real. That's what's breaking chains. If you hear me say smoking weed and you just finished smoking weed, or you're high,
you're convicted.
He
talking to me.
It's like, how does he know my thoughts? You know, it's like good. You just finished like cheating or doing something. I just mentioned something about cheating or adultery. You're like, bruh, you know, it feels like God. You know, it doesn't feel like you're talking to me. It's like, how could he know that? He doesn't even know me. I've never seen this guy in my life. What's he talking about? And many of us go through that, but we're just not saying it.
I think the part I find fascinating, and I wish more people talked about this earlier on, is I find fascinating the grace and the gift, right? And the works and the performance isn't what saves me. Like I'm saved because God's a good God and he's a merciful God. But the byproduct of living his way and there being more resource for that. Meaning like you said, man, like if you've lived a certain way for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's going to take a while for some of these things to and sometimes we sell people this like bag of goods of like, just place your faith in Jesus and everything's going to fall off and you're going to be delivered instantly. And that ain't my testimony, man. Like there's still things that I'm dealing with. There's still things I'm processing. There's still things that I have to wage war on in my flesh. Not because I feel like if I step left when I should have stepped right, I'm going to go to hell. Because I want to live my life onto the glory of God in every area of my life. And I know that on this side of eternity, on this side of glory, I won't be able to. But nevertheless, I'm going to do my very best to pursue Jesus. And I feel like there isn't enough like tangible resource, not to self-promote in the middle of this, but like I put together like a course with my Christian therapist called mastermyhabits.com. And that was like my attempt, because I'm getting all these DMs of dudes that are like, man, you talked about struggling with porn. I struggle with porn. How do I start? And there's no real like solid theologically grounded resource of like, man, just because you looked at porn don't mean you're going to hell. But you should stop looking at porn and here's why and this is how. You know what I mean? And so like, would you say that was true for you? Like there was no tangible resources available, or maybe it's discipleship, or like what do you think the hiccup was?
Wait, the hiccup regarding what exactly?
Just kind of like wrestling. Obviously, we're going to wrestle with sin to some degree.
Like
right?
you're asking like, what was the reason I was falling into those things still? Man, like kind of like what you just said a minute ago when you were referencing what I said before. Like trying to just act like you weren't just doing that for like the last however many years of your life.
Oh, like covering it up.
Like that's very difficult to do, man. And you know, whenever you bring all of that stuff to the light, You know, it's hard for anybody to try and like shame you for it, you know, when these things like happen, because I don't want you to idolize me. I want you to feel like I'm just like you. I want you to know that. I want you to know I'm on the ground with you. I think a lot of these guys we look at and we're like looking up at them, you know, because they are like supposed to be, and they are, you know, the examples of what we're supposed to be, because God's using them as that. But man, the only way that people are going to resonate if they understand that it's not perfect. You know, I think the disconnect between the people that you were saying from the beginning that were like speaking that real, like raw stuff they were saying in the music, in theology, compared to now is the transparency. Because we need to know that behind the stuff you're saying, you're still a human being.
That's good.
You know, because if I'm reaching every single day to be perfect and it's not working, I'm going to quit.
Well, you said a word, you said disconnect. And I think that connection of the human experience is probably something that drives people to, one, like your music more, but also pursue that own journey of sanctification and trying to, you know, figure their life out, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through discipleship, church, all of these different things. You said you grew up Catholic. How would you say church looks for you now? Like, what kind of church you go to, and like, what is like the discipleship process now? So
now I'm actually like still looking for a church in Houston. So like I just visit different churches. So I'm not like at a specific church, but when it comes down to that, I'm looking for a church that's going to actually speak from the Bible and speak about Jesus Christ. I'm not saying that the Catholic Church didn't speak about Jesus, but it wasn't anything that was, you know, convicting me. It wasn't anything that was making me feel like I was in relationship with the Lord in that moment. And when I go to church, I want to feel like I'm at God's house, you know, and I'm there for an appointment, and I'm getting something when I'm leaving. I wasn't getting anything from Catholic church. I could still go to a Catholic church, and usually when I go, I still don't get anything, just because of the structure of how it is. It seems like there's so much going on. You know, I don't want to offend like a Catholic or anything like that. It's just like it doesn't get straight down to what I need to hear. And a lot of these, you know, people that I may hear, whether it's sermons that I hear on YouTube and whatnot, I hear like, or even the ones that get circulated around social media, you'll hear like somebody who's speaking some really convicting things. It'll be just like what we said about my music, but just in a form of preaching. And I want to hear that. Like, and I think that's the reason why it's hard for me to listen to certain music or go to certain churches or do certain things, is because I guess I'm looking for what it is that I'm doing in them, but just not the same exact way. Just I want to feel how I feel my music make other people feel, or what my ministry may make others feel, the raw, the real stuff. I don't need my pastor to come up and say he was watching porn last night. You know,
that'd probably be a little awkward in front of pulpit.
But I still want it to be real. And I feel like a lot of it isn't real.
In Houston, though, I feel like Houston got a lot of good churches.
I'm not saying
because you're new to Houston. Though.
Yeah.
How long you been in Houston?
I've only been in Houston about a year now. I'm not saying in Houston. I was speaking in general. But in Houston, I've found way more churches now like that are completely different from where I was going to in different places I experienced in Louisiana. You know?
Now, can I push back a little bit? I think an epidemic we do have in the CHH space is not enough brothers in churches. And by churches, I mean in a local church, under a covering, serving, known by your community. And so I'll do my best to connect you with some brothers I have in Houston that are doing all types of different ministry. But I would just encourage you, man, like, definitely connect into a local church. Because I feel like if you're talking about one thing that almost everybody experiences in the CHH space is this like, I can't find the right church, man. And I'm like, look, there's no perfect church. There's no right church. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be a part of a church. And maybe the very things that we see as missing in a church, we present and add those things to the church. You know, like I got a huge burden for young men, you know, and it's that like, instead of me like, man, church ain't doing nothing for men. That's why the red pill and the manosphere and all these Andrew Tates blowing up. It's like, well, maybe that's a burden God's given me to go into a local church and do the men's ministry, you know? And so I would just encourage you, man, like, and again, you're trying out different churches, but I would just encourage you, man, definitely plug in and lock into a church and start serving, because I think that spiritual covering, again, we went from extremes. Like once upon a time in CHH, everybody was a member of a church, signing the covenant agreement and now it's like very few people are in churches, in small groups, and getting discipled.
Yeah, I think that's necessary. I think it's important. I'm not going to say exactly what it was like on camera, but it's certain things that I've witnessed, you know, that kept me from even like wanting to even go to a church just because of certain things I would see from the people that are leading in the church or like working in the church and stuff. And I believe the Lord wanted me to see certain things, not so that I couldn't go to church, but just so that I could be aware and I could be alert, you know, when it comes down to those things. So that's what I'm trying to be careful of. You know, I don't have anything against church. I don't have anything against preachers. You know, like there wouldn't be church if it wasn't necessary. You know, the Lord speaks about church very often throughout the Bible. So I believe that is something that we should do. And when it comes down to that, I will always promote, you know, church for everybody to go to. We should definitely do that.
Yeah. I'm weary of like the Lone Ranger. I'm Rambo in the woods by myself trying to take on the world. You know what I mean? Like that's the part I get worried about, because I feel like, man, there's no perfect church, man. And this is as someone that's been on staff at a church. I've been at the same church for 20 years, and I know a lot of pastors from all types of different denominations. Bro, it's tough. It's hard, especially post-COVID. It's really hard to like be in it. But it's one of the most beneficial things, I think, for anyone, is to be a part of that like local body where you got that family and that camaraderie, and there's that unity. Again, even though it's a very flawed system, it's always going to be on this side of eternity. But I think there's immense benefit there.
And I believe we're in desperate times right now. So we need a desperate word.
Amen.
And that's the reason why I feel the way I feel regarding a lot of that, even if we relate it to what we even said about like Christian hip hop. You know, I feel like a lot of it is more centered on rap. It's about the art of rap and all of that. And that's cool. You know, that's dope. But that's a talent.
I feel like I wouldn't be mad at what you just described if it was, this is going to sound crazy, I wouldn't be mad if it was what you described, if it was brothers that were doing what you were doing outside of the Christian consumer ecosystem. This is what I'm saying. You're operating outside of the evangelical industrial complex. There's an industrial complex, bro. There's a network of churches, conferences, youth groups, church camps that is a multi-7, probably multi-8-figure business. And the guys you're talking about that don't rap about Jesus benefit from this evangelical industrial complex. However, they're not in church. They're not in, you know what I mean? Like the music doesn't reflect that. And I could name you countless guys that have benefited from this evangelical industrial complex, and yet their music doesn't really sound like it's even made for that, right? Whereas if someone's like, like I just want to be about rap and like I love Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Cool. Go make videos for TikTok the way you do, the way Caleb does, and don't go get this church money and get this youth group money. You know what I mean? So it's almost like the things should be inverted. You know, like I'd rather see you at these youth groups, at these winter jams, at these things, because you genuinely got a burden to be like, I'm preaching Jesus.
And nothing is wrong with getting the bag and doing whatever it is you feel like you have to do on the financial side of things. Like, I mean, like in Corinthians, Paul said, you know, we got to get paid too. You know, but that can't be the focus. It can't be the purpose. And a lot of times I believe we fall away and we lose that, you know, just because money gets so big as the center of everything. Money becomes the center and it becomes something that becomes the motivation for what we're doing. And it gets to this point where it's like, oh, I got to keep making, like, even if it's the content we're creating, I got to keep making these videos because that's what's keeping the money in. Like when you asked me about me getting the money that I'm making financially off of the music and everything, what if because of that, I need to keep making music in order to make money, and I start making it more about that than about actually trying to reach the people.
Because then it becomes a means to an end.
Exactly. You know, so I don't have anything against like, you know, making money. I just think that because we live in a society where we need to have money. You know, I wouldn't be able to be here right now if I didn't have money. So I need money. But I'll tell you one thing about me. God has always provided for every single thing that I've done. No matter what it was for him, it came in some form, in some way. And I've never charged for anything regarding music ever. You know, I haven't. Like anytime someone comes to me to do ministry, whether it's a feature, whether it's coming to a church and I'm speaking or I'm performing or a tour, anything like that, I never charge that. Now, if you know, offer me something or honorarium and things like that, I believe God may be doing that through you, but I would never request it or ask for it.
Respect.
That's just how.
I'm not leaving the crib without getting paid.
No.
This man said,
no. I feel
respect,
you,
bro.
I feel you though. I feel you. Like I get it. I know, and I know a lot of people like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just know what it is that he's asking me to do
that's
because
beautiful.
of what they're witnessing to whenever I don't ask for that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing well, and it sounds like this is the bread and butter. But like if somebody hits me up and it's like, yo, fly to Virginia and do a rap show. I'm like, nah.
But that's different. You're doing a rap show. Are you doing that as a form of ministry? Like,
that's a great question. So again, then we have to define what that means. You know, like what do you mean when you say the word ministry?
Because when I come, I'm not coming to like spit some hot bars for you.
You come to preach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if it's through the music, I want you to leave feeling better than you felt when you got here.
Yes.
And when I say better, I don't mean like, your mood. I mean your spirit.
Yeah.
Like I'm here to touch the lives of people. That's the reason why I don't just accept everything, because I know where God's telling me to go.
Yeah, man, this is good because this is challenging to me. If I'm honest with you, I feel like I am more efficient leveraging the technology and being in the groove that I'm in and having my kids within arm's reach and all these different things that I'll do stuff for free when I feel like God's telling me to do something for free. But generally speaking, if someone really wants me to come up, I'm gonna have to need to be compensated for that.
I feel like God is telling me to do almost everything that I'm doing for free on the side of ministry. I could like imagine a school, ask me to come and do any form of ministry, whether it's speaking, performing, whatever it is. And I charge $10K. That's my set price of what I do. It starts at that. All they got is $7. Y'all better start running some fundraisers.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I hear your point. I think it's a good point. I think, like you said in Corinthians, right? Like a worker is worth his wages, right? Paul writes that. So I think the tension that many people fall into is if someone's day-to-day ministry is already running a church or whatever. And you're right in that, like, a lot of brothers do like the honorarium thing. It's like my suggested donation. We got all these little code words, but like,
I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, what's an honorarium? Just say payment, money, or whatever it is, the fee. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to look at you crazy.
But it's a roundabout way of
and it's like that with almost everything in the world. There's always like this thing that we cover. And that's a different conversation. But just regarding what we're talking about, like I said, like, I'll have someone pay for my flight, or my room or things like that, depending on what it is. But for the service that you're asking me to do, that's for the Lord, I wouldn't even be in this position if it wasn't for him putting me here. So I don't charge for that. And I'm not even gonna say usually, I don't. Like, there's not a person that could say I charge this select amount. The one time that I almost did charge because like the person that was setting it up for me told me to charge, it didn't work out. It didn't even go through.
Interesting.
So like I said, it's about your relationship. God, I'm not telling you that he's not telling you to be compensated. That's how you take care of your family. That's how you survive. I'm just saying, for me personally, he's making his way on how to make sure that, I get what I need.
That's dope.
And
what percentage would you say is coming from shows and events and versus like just your streaming revenues?
Percentage, like money-wise? I mean, I've probably made close to $200K off of just the streams of my music over the last year.
Over the last year?
Yeah.
That's great.
But when it comes down to like shows and stuff, like I said, like I haven't really been getting like paid for stuff like that.
And so they bring you out, cover your flight, and don't give you no type of
No, like they'll give me like something, but it wouldn't be like somebody might throw me like a stack or something.
Okay.
It wouldn't be like this crazy amount because they feel like they're doing that off the strength of an offering or something, just because I didn't like give them a contract saying I need this much to come out. They already know that I was coming out to do it for free. So a lot of what I do, like I said, I don't get a lot of money that I make like from that. People sow a lot of seeds into my ministry though. And because of that, I believe it or not, like I've made a lot of money just from that. But I don't even use that like for my own personal stuff. Usually whenever I get that type of money, I put it towards what it is that I'm doing for God.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Well, first of all, congratulations on, you said $200K in a year?
Yeah.
That's great.
Like, I'm probably making close to $20K a month.
That's amazing. Consistently off Spotify.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
More than all the platforms.
All the platforms. So like your DistroKid money is about 20 bands a month.
Yeah.
Praise God, bro.
Yeah, man.
You're in the top percent of not just Christian rappers. You're probably in the 1% of the 1% of just independent musicians.
Right. And I don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to say, I'm the richest Christian rapper.
I'm
the
richest Christian rapper.
I don't have to like come out and do all that. Like, I feel like once I get into that position, like we are right now in that intimate place with somebody we're talking or I'm preaching or whatever, that's when he allows people to witness that and be like, dang, I didn't even know it was like that. Because they think we're broke or poor.
No, they do. And it's a testament though to the faithfulness of God. Like it's a testament to be like, man, you can do it the way you feel God's leading you to do it, and it flourish financially as well, And I think because you've maintained this open-handed model, that's why you're continuing to be successful, and it's only continuing to bubble up and get bigger and bigger, man. So That's amazing, bro. Congratulations on that, man. I think you're a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that as Christian artists or anybody doing anything like professionally Christian, right? Which I think is a whole nother like tension that people can live in, like when your faith is attached to your finances, right? That could be very tricky.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to see brothers like you do it the way you've been doing it, without the compromise, transparent, flourishing, and just that open-handed mentality, man. I think God's going to do even bigger things through you, brother.
The moment I feel like I give into that is going to change everything. You know, I haven't ever paid for playlisting. I never paid for followers or nothing. Like, everything has been organic.
Don't ever, guys, if anybody watches this, don't ever pay for any of that. That's
facts,
yeah, that's bad.
Like, people, and some people don't believe it. They're like, how'd you get this from this? How many get this many views? Or like that stuff that like Instagram and like these places push like for us to boost our posts and all of that stuff. Like, dude, I don't believe in none of that stuff. I'm not saying it hasn't worked for people. I just literally operate off of faith for everything. And not only that, but I believe it. I really do. I believe that God is going to take it to wherever he's going to take it the moment that I put it out there. And if it misses, then cool. Like, I'm on to the next thing already. You know, I'm working on albums that while I'm working on other stuff at the same time, because I know I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it simply for what he's called me to do. And I believe that if you know, we start moving like that with whatever we're called to do, we'll see a difference. Some people rap for fun. That might not be your calling. That's cool. I'm called to rap what it is that he's doing in my life and sharing it with the people in order for them to have the chains broken in their life and resonate and relate to what I'm saying.
That's beautiful, man. Well, I don't know no other better way to end it than that, bro.
Yeah, man.
That was beautiful. Hopefully we have you back on again. And I'm excited. I'm excited to just watch everything that's been happening. Like I said, I've been paying attention. I feel like we've been friendly on social media for a while. But it's been dope to see it just all blossom.
I'm glad we were able to do this because now like you have like much more insight now, like on like not just who I am, but why I do what it is that I'm doing, or why I may not be connected to certain people, you know, because I'm sure they, not trying to sound arrogant or cocky, Bob, I'm sure they see me.
No.
You know
it's a very small space. Everybody sees everybody.
You know, I'm sure they see who I am and stuff. And like I said, like, I always wondered, like, dang, why aren't they posting me? You know, I'm rapping about God too, you know, but I think it's a certain way you got to go about it. I do have a question for you, though. If you may know, I know you say you're friends with a lot of these guys and stuff. What is the reason why you feel they don't speak about Jesus as often in their music?
That's a great question. Well, one, you know, when there's like a social contagion and everybody's doing things, people just doing things blindly. So I think there's some of that. Like, this is just what the scene has been for the past, since 2015, 2016. This is what it is. So when you're coming up within an ecosystem, you just monkey see, monkey do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just kind of copy everything. You know what I mean? It's not even that intentional. And so when we were doing it, for context, we weren't doing church shows. Like, we were doing primarily secular colleges. And then the space kind of shifted, and then all of a sudden what we were doing was deemed cool. But we weren't necessarily embraced by the Rapzillas like that initially. Like, it took us some while. But because we were still going out and doing, you know, consistent 30, 40, 50 colleges a year, that was all of our bread. I wasn't making no money off the church in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. It was just all secular shows.
Do you believe in artists who may speak about Jesus as much as I do in my music is what may keep them from embracing what it is?
Ask me that a different way.
Like, do you believe that if I'm doing it this way, like differently from how they're doing it, which is making sure that it's the message of Jesus being preached in my music constantly. Do you believe that that would keep me from having the opportunities of collabing, working, signing, whatever it may be, with other people in the Christian hip hop space?
No. And please don't sign to anybody within the Christian hip hop space or the Christian space in general. I'm anti record label.
Yeah, me too.
On 1,000%. No, I don't think so. I think what's happened is, again, we've gone to such an extreme on one side, and I think people are starting to wake up and like, what are we doing here? Like, we play in churches, we're playing festivals, we're doing all this stuff, but no one's really rapping about Jesus. It's mad confusing. And I think it's just, again, you just get used to so many things, you're not really conscious of it. I think we're starting to see that shift. Like, I think Reach Records signing Hovey, for example, who's more overt with his faith, I think is another one of those, like, wow, this is a breath of fresh air. Yeah. So I think the space is getting shook up right now. The disruption of TikTok short form, guys like you that don't know anybody that are going out and doing 200K a year independently is shaking up a lot of things right now in a good way.
Right.
And so I think all of these different things are good. No, I don't think John Keith is not going to do a song with you, or No Big Deal is not going to do a song with you because you talk about Jesus too much. Right. I completely don't believe that. I think maybe there are some guys, but to me those guys are corny anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're trying to be super Hollywood and sunglasses inside and like be the cool guy, like I just think that's mad cringe anyway. You know what I mean? Like what do you even do? What are we doing here? You know? So no, I think the space is coming around, and I actually think it's coming around on the strength of. Let's remove the spiritual element. I'm with you on that. There's a spiritual hand on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's opening doors. And I would say for me, like the more I spoke openly about my faith on YouTube, the more my YouTube flourished, right?
Right.
But if we just back up and just look at it in the natural, we're talking about the supernatural, let's look at the natural. It's mad confusing from a branding standpoint to say, I'm a Christian. I'm in the Christian ecosystem. I'm doing Christian shows, but I'm seldom talking about Christian things.
That's why I asked.
Right? From just strictly branding. Like, what, you know? So I think the cleaner someone's marketing is and the cleaner someone's branding is and the more cohesive and coherent it is, the easier it is for discoverability, for shareability, all those different things. And I think Christian hip-hop's had an identity crisis because we've been failing on all those different things. Right. We've been so immersed in like, I want to go out into the world and reach the world. Dope. But if you want to reach the world, you got to do it totally different.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so there's guys that come from the space that want to reach the world. Nick D, Toby, Foggy Raw, but they all do very different things than what you do. And they don't want to be on Rapzilla. They don't want to collaborate with Christian artists. They don't want to play churches. They don't take any bags from Christians. And so they go out and they do their thing. And right or wrong and different, there's a different way to do that.
Yeah.
You can't brand yourself and be a part of a Christian, exclusively Christian ecosystem and then say, I want to go reach the world.
Right.
This is not how it works. Unless you become so big that you outgrow the space.
Exactly.
You know, and that's also a pathway. Like that's also like Lecrae
that's a goal.
Yeah, Lecrae was at one point right there, and then he just I think he just got burnt out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think he got so big, and then it was just like it was a lot for him, you know?
Yeah.
But I think with TikTok, I think it's possible. I think, like I did the numbers on this, bro, and there's, you know, Christianity is the largest religion, you know, just globally, billions of people. I think there's like 800 million Protestants,
right.
You know, and in America, there's 100 million, supposedly, you know, whatever that means, right? Christian.
I know you mentioned Lecrae. I think he's doing it the way that the Lord wants him to do it.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I think that he has his ways of going about things, and he's human too.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people like hold him as like the standard, as like the face of everything. Like I said, when I came into the space, he was the only person that I knew.
Yep.
And as soon as I said his name, all I started hearing was like a lot of bad things, but only from the Christians.
Interesting.
You know?
Interesting, isn't it?
It is. It is. So as I continue to scope it out myself, because I don't just go off what anybody tells me.
Yeah.
I begin to realize that, especially listening to his music and whatnot, I don't know him at all. I've never spoke to him in my life.
Yeah.
But I could tell that he listens to God. He talks to God. He knows who God is and Jesus.
Yep.
You know, and signing Hovey, like you said, is also a huge part of that as well.
Yep.
So I think that a lot of people, we got to worry about us.
Hey man, that's the biggest takeaway I think. If we have a heart for unity, and I've had this heart for a long time, by the way. When I used to be, right now I'm just so you know, I'm viewed more as like closer to where you are. Yeah. Like I'm unapologetic. I'm gonna tell people about Jesus. I'm not gonna water down what sin is or isn't. And so I'm viewed closer to where you are. I came in this space being viewed like further left than Lecrae.
Oh wow!
Back then, trying to unify brothers, like yo, let's get propaganda and let's get the cross movement guys and do a show together. And people were like, what? Why? You know? And so like I'm with you on a unity aspect. I think unity is going to come as a byproduct of two things: one, relationship, and two, infrastructure.
Right.
Because there's no real infrastructure. There's you got one or two like festivals. There's no real conferences, and there's no real infrastructure. There's no touring. And so I think once those things click and align up, I think you'll see more people. But I think generally speaking, from my experience, whether it's being friends with John Keith or No Big Deal or Lecrae, I think generally speaking, most people got to share your heart, share your sentiment. I think most people are there. There's a couple guys that are still trying to be at like the cool kids table, like it's high school, you know. And again, that to me is more cringe than rapping about Jesus. Like you Christian, but you trying to.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious, you know, of what your answer was. Like I said, you're more, you know, connected to them than I am. So I was just curious because that was a thought for me. I was discouraged at a particular point in my career because I felt like the things that I was talking about, which was I thought was Christian.
Yep.
wasn't going to be accepted by the Christians that could possibly give me opportunity at the time when I needed it.
Yeah.
You know, so I felt like, dang, you know, like,
Well, the beautiful part is you don't need it.
Right.
You don't need a Lecrae shout out, cosign, feature, show. Bro, you're gonna do what you're gonna do regardless. Yeah. And it's a combination again of the supernatural of what God's done in your heart and what you've been able to execute in the natural.
Yeah.
And I think I really believe that like what you're doing is a I don't say blueprint, but like is something that I point to regularly and just
blueprint is the word I've used before as well regarding it. I think that it's just the beginning of what God's doing.
Yeah, honestly. I just tell people stop complaining. Yeah. I just be saying, yo, what you complaining for? Like you don't like there's guys making again, I know guys that are doing 6 figures a month off Spotify in DistroKid. You know what I mean? I'm just like, there's a lot of money out here. Not that that's because money isn't the goal, but it is a means to an end. You know, and so I just think, bro, there's more than enough out here for everybody to win. I think some of what you're describing is also a scarcity mindset.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, he's making it. I can't show him any shine because that might mess up what I got going. And I just go, that's stupid.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity out here. So many people. There's billions of people out here that need to be reached.
We're looking at it for the wrong reasons.
Amen.
That's what it is.
Bro. Amen. Brother, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you. We got to do this again. And hopefully we could do some more stuff together at some point.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. And that's it.